Hi guys, so I'm here today with Bart K again for round 3. We'll be talking about diet training, a little bit about supplements as well. I've been looking forward to this one actually because I've really sort of narrowed down some useful questions from my viewers. And well, if you're not subscribed already, I suggest you do. I'm sure most of my 1,000 odd subscribers are already subscribed to Bart's, but if you're not already, please do. He's got a great channel. It's close to 30,000 subscribers now. So like a million views. So he's very popular and he's got some great insights towards all these different things that I like to talk about. So the first question is, Bart, what, if any, is the value of a post-workout protein shake? And by that I mean, is there an anabolic window?
Yeah. Okay. I think probably that for the most part, for most people, it's probably a bit pointless. And there's several reasons I'll say that. The first one is that the quality of most protein powders is pretty ordinary. It's pretty average. If you are paying less than probably 80 quid for a tub of the stuff, it's probably junk. It'll have fillers in it. It'll have carbs in it, more likely than not. Often it's not construed of the best quality branch chain aminos and other single aminos and things that need to be in it. That it's not balanced in the right way. I think there's very little chance that you're going to get much benefit from a protein shake after your workout session. If you've got all of that squared away and you've got the best protein powder in the world, there may well be an anabolic window where your muscles will absorb that protein for use more readily, sure. But I think the overall benefit of that, I think it's pretty limited for most people. At the end of the day, most people who are trying to build muscle mass are doing that really slowly. You don't get huge overnight. I mean, take yourself for an example, Jonathan. Did you get huge overnight? Is that what happened? Or did it take you years of training to achieve what you've done?
To be honest, it did take me over a decade.
There you go. And so do we really think that a short window of slightly elevated propensity to absorb protein into a muscle cell is going to make all the difference? Really? I don't, personally. So I would suggest to people that you do the right form of training, absolutely, that you do the right intensity, the right volume, you listen to people that know what they're talking about in training, you do the right thing by your body nutrition-wise, which is to make sure your diet is made up of the right stuff. And any of these other 5%ers, natty little bits here and there, like the right protein powder or the timing of meals post-training or whatever, I wouldn't bother. I really wouldn't. It's stuff that's put out there to overcomplicate the thing and to make it sound like there are people out there who know something that others don't know, and you just got to follow me because I'm the only one that can tell you the right timing and the right protein to take. And it's like, just nonsense. It really is. So no, I wouldn't get overexcited about that stuff. Work hard, train appropriately, train hard, eat the right diet, get enough rest, sleep well, ground yourself as much as possible, block out blue light after dark. All those things in that 5 minutes or less video that I've got about 4 life hacks. The thumbnail is a picture of me doing that, saying 4 life hacks or something. If you want to see that one on my very fine science-based channel, I'd check that one out.
Yeah, I've seen that one already. I hope my viewers actually watch that as well. So what I will do is link that below. And on this sort of like life hack kind of thing.
Yeah.
Are there any useful sports supplements over the counter? So not drugs, Liver King.
Yeah. Gosh, I'm so shocked. I couldn't believe it. And I saw, perhaps something we shouldn't necessarily be talking about, but let's do it anyway. I saw a short Fruity Honey Salad Boy video today where he's suddenly, trying to distance himself from the whole thing and like, oh, I didn't know, and I had my suspicions, but I didn't know for sure, and all this and blah 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 blah. That was wildly amusing watching that boy eat humble pie and all of that. But the main thing that I got out of that was I don't know what had just been going on before he started recording and whatever else, but the boy was gassed. It was like he'd just run a mile or something. He was talking like this, and he could get as soon as. And I'm like, what's going on, Paul? What's up with that? And then, I was kind of just looking at what you could ascertain for yourself by viewing the video. I'll let people that watch that one for themselves and see what they think. But wow is all I can say on that. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted. What were we talking about?
I remember.
Supplements. Yeah, over-the-counter stuff, but not drugs, not PEDs. I have been known in my time to play around a little bit with things like creatine. Not effective as a performance enhancer, I don't think. It can help you retain more fluid, plump muscles up if you want, purely for appearance, not for anything functional. In fact, if it was for performance, it would probably drag you down because the extra water that you retain because of the creatine would actually disturb your power to weight ratio in most sports, and it would mess you up. So, yeah. I've been known to play around with epicatechin a bit, which, for those that don't know, is a myostatin blockade. Myostatin is a negative feedback protein that your body produces, which limits your muscle growth. If you can either blockade or knock out myostatin production, what happens is people vastly, grossly put on like huge muscle mass literally overnight if they have a really effective agent. Epicatechin is one of those mildly effective agents, maybe. Not convinced. Really effective agents is a double gene knockout. And you'll find an example of that in nature. Not in humans, you'll find it in bulls, the blue Belgian bulls, those double-muscled bulls. They have myostatin knockout. That's why they're double-muscled. That's why they're huge muscular beasts. And there's been one or two examples of one or two individuals who have, humans who have been thought to probably have a myostatin either knockdown or knockout situation as well. From time to time. There was one young boy, I forget his name now, but he was teenage and looked like Arnie.
Track or something? Yeah,
that sounds right. Yep. So there was a thought that he might have been, myostatin knockout, and that's, the genetic reason why, because it wasn't, there's no way that a kid that age could build that sort of musculature the traditional way with traditional training methods. For a start, they wouldn't let a kid train hard enough to cause that to happen, but purely because of the skeletal damage that would do. Because if you've got a young child, basically, whose epiphyseal plates in their bones haven't fused yet, heavy weight training could cause real problems for that individual in terms of malformation, stunted growth, in terms of the height that the kid would end up at and all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, epicatechin, I don't know whether it works or not. I've played around with it a bit myself at times. This is a few years ago when I was training. I haven't trained for anything really for quite a number of years now. Do I promote anything? Only thing I promote these days by way of any kind of supplementation at all is hack number 2 on that 4 life hacks video I was talking about a few minutes ago. That's a company I'm joint ventured with, who make a product which causes the bone marrow to release your own adult stem cells into your bloodstream, whereupon they do all sorts of magic, like differentiate into brand new adult stem cells of whatever kind your body might need. Blood cells, immune cells, hair follicle cells, no, not those. Heart cells, eyeball cells, whatever your body needs, it provides them. And it provides them with full-length telomeres, meaning that biologically those new tissues are age 0 rather than age whatever you might be, which is a good thing. And before they differentiate, they generally tend to tone down inflammation, settle down situations that might be getting out of hand, and also they can tell cancer cells to undergo cell destruction and destroy themselves. So quite a good thing. I think quite a powerful product. I'm quite convinced that it is a powerful product. I'm not allowed to make any therapeutic claims of any kind, so I won't. But do check out that video if you're interested. Other than that, there's nothing I would support. I would suggest or support or say people should take this who are weight training necessarily. Maybe collagen. There's also a collagen product on that same company that I'm talking about as well. You can check that out while you're there if you want. It's a marine collagen peptide product. Also has an anti-inflammatory in it as well. It's quite good. I don't know. Branched chain amino acids might not be a bad idea, but I wouldn't go paying heaps and heaps and having scoops and scoops and scoops of protein powder, because any excess protein that your body cannot use will tend to go through gluconeogenesis. And that's not a good thing when you're trying to put on muscle mass. Number one, because it will cause inflammation and interfere with your muscle building. Number two, it might derange your metabolism. You might end up with a blood glucose control issue if you overdo it on the protein. Most lifters, most people doing hypertrophy training, muscle builders, muscle bodybuilders, tend to think that they need a lot more protein than they do, and they tend to eat too much. And it's a mistake. So I would, if you're going to take branched chain amino acids, okay, fine, but in a very, very limited amount, and not in the context probably of a whole protein powder, most of which will be junk. Yeah. Okay. I think that covers it.
Yeah, that's good advice. People always try to battle for these extra 1%.
Yeah.
When you miss out all the rest of it, like the grounding, everything else like you just said, that's going to be much more.
Yeah. What's the point? What's the point of seeking out the 5% stuff if you're not doing the 95? Yeah. Good point. Well made.
I don't recommend most of my clients do protein powders. A protein powder might be useful more so if they're out on the road, they can't sit and eat a meal. That's about it.
Yeah.
And as well, are there any sort of caveats to what you said? So is it that if you're following a species appropriate diet, then you don't need these supplements? Or is it that if you've got a trash Western diet, you might need to take X, Y, Z?
Anything you take outside of the flesh and fat of animals, like anything non-carnivore, will tend to lead you to need more restorative things, because plant material tends to strip nutrient out of your body. Not only does it blockade you absorbing most of the nutrient that's found in the plant material, but it will actually start pulling things out of your body as well. The very idea of it is that the plants have evolved a defense mechanism that is supposed to discourage you from eating the plants. And many of the plant toxins that have evolved precisely actually to discourage insects more than humans and more complex animals so much. Many of them will kill an insect stone dead, where it would take 50 years to kill a human maybe. But it'll kill you nonetheless. It just takes a lot longer to do it. The dose makes the poison. The physiology of the particular animal makes a difference, absolutely. An example is caffeine. Caffeine will kill an insect stone dead really quickly. Whereas, in a human, it could take decades to achieve it, depending on how much caffeine you take. You can kill yourself with caffeine quite quickly if you have enough. But, that's for another day. Nicotine is another one. If you were to concentrate nicotine and take a teaspoon of pure nicotine, that would be enough to kill a bull elephant stone dead, for example. Another crazy example that I happen to know about is the rhubarb plant. You know how you eat the red bits? Well, some people do. We don't, obviously, because that's basically just sugar and fibre. The green bits of a rhubarb plant contain a toxin which is almost as deadly as ricin if you concentrate it and treat it the right way. There are many tribes that used to actually use it as a poison on the tips of spears and arrows and things to kill rivals very, very quickly. So that's another interesting one. For less deadly examples, for example, vitamin C. If you eat any amount of carbohydrate to speak of, the amount of vitamin C that you'll need to take in order to prevent yourself from getting scurvy goes up hugely. Many of the minerals and things blocked out by plants also will drag those minerals out of your body as well, like zinc and copper and, those kind of things can all get very badly deranged by eating plant material. So that's really, one of the main reasons behind it. Absolutely you can get some energy from eating plant material. Yes, you can get protein from eating plant material so long as you combine in the right way, and it's very, very technical to get it right. Why not just eat a diet that contains all the protein you need, whole protein, in the right makeup with the right minerals and stuff at the right levels already in it, and no toxins to speak of? Why not just do that?
Makes sense, doesn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, it is a bit crazy. And on that sort of note, a lot of people, from what I see, a lot of people do cheat on their diet. Not just anyone, but people doing this way of eating, kind of way of eating. I personally do maybe one off-plan meal a month.
Mm-hmm.
Quite enjoy it. It doesn't seem to impact me too much. Now, the question is there a point where having too many off-plan meals is detrimental? So is it that one meal will damage you a lot, or is it that you have a sliding scale, so more will accrue lots of damage?
Yeah, okay. One meal, what the damage that one meal will do really depends on how bad that meal is, what the makeup of that meal was, and the interaction between that and how sensitive that individual person is to that thing. There are people who can get away with a lot more than others. There are people who can go off-plan a meal here and there and it's no big deal. And there are people who can have one single thing that's off-plan and it basically destroys them for a week or more. So it's completely unjust, unfair. There's no equity in the world. It's just the luck of the draw, I guess, a little bit. What I have found also is that many people are reporting having been on a carnivore diet fairly strictly for around 6 months or so, their tolerance evaporates. As soon as they step off plan, all hell breaks loose, apparently. So that's an interesting one. So that might be a positive. It might be a way of encouraging people to stay carnivore. It's almost like your body's going, we talked about this. You did the right thing. I gave you the right signals. in terms of the health that you got out of doing that. Now you've stepped off plan, so I'm going to spank you for it. I don't know. So maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. If people say, are there any downsides of the carnivore diet? I always say, well, I don't know if it's a downside or not, but I can tell you that if you go carnivore for around about 6 months or so, your tolerance to stuff that's not good food for humans will decrease. You won't be able to just eat whatever you want. So I guess that's a good caveat that people should know about.
At that point, if someone's, say, like an average person, and they, we go out for meals with family, it might be someone's birthday, would it be more beneficial to almost deliberately have those off-plan meals? So for example, a slice of birthday cake every few weeks or so, to not get that long-term intolerance to all foods?
That's a decision for each individual to make on the basis of their own N=1 experience of how they will react. It might be that a piece of cake every few weeks does more damage than it's worth, or it might be that you notice really nothing at all. And if that's your inoculation, if that's the thing that allows you to go and have a bit of birthday cake or whatever, and that's important to you, that might be a way around it. Is that a good idea? I don't think so. I wouldn't suggest a person does that personally. My way of thinking around nutrition is that the ideal thing for a person to do is to show the self-discipline and the self-control that's required to eat the right thing the vast majority of the time, if not all the time. I'm never going to sit in judgment on anybody because I'm not perfect. I'm only about 95% carnivore. I have my sort of 5% foibles, if you like. I drink coffee still. I don't mind the odd beer here and there. That sort of thing. And those things do have an effect. I know what the effect of those things are on my body, and I make that decision at that time. Am I going to do this really? Because this is what I'm going to experience for the next week or so. If I do that ongoingly, this is what I'm going to get out of it. Do I really want to do that? So yeah, it's a decision a person has to make for themselves. You have to decide how closely you are going to adhere to what is the species appropriate, ideal, specific nutritional program for a person to undertake. At the end of the day, if your only source of excitement, enjoyment in your life is food-based, I really seriously think you should have a look at your life. I really do. You can go to a family birthday party and not eat a single thing. You can do that. Okay, that might be socially awkward. It might be socially difficult. There might be peer pressure upon you or family pressure upon you, absolutely. But at the end of the day, I have never heard from anyone that's been to a family birthday party, came home, and said to their partner, that was terrible, that was awful. They held a gun to my head. They forced it down my neck. They made me eat it. Because actually, if you say, I'm not doing that. I'm here for the party. I'm here for the social interaction. I'm here for the observance. I'm here for the family situation, but I am not going to eat that stuff. You guys go ahead. It's not going to change my life. I am not doing that. You actually can do that. It's up to you.
Yeah, yeah, that's good advice. About a third of the people that I speak to have some form of binge eating, carb craving addiction.
Yeah,
it's much more common than what we might think, especially even in this community.
Yeah.
So is there anyone that that's perhaps like a coach or a Facebook group, perhaps? Or?
Yeah. Look, I'm laughing because Jonathan knows full well that my lovely partner Pim is a carb addiction coach. That's her thing first and foremost, and she's really good at it. People who have an issue with feeling like they are out of control and are not able to exert the kind of self-discipline I'm talking about, you do need to talk to Pim. And the way to organise that is to email her, and her email address is PIM, which is PIM. It's not Pam, it's PIM, at Pim Johnson, which is JANSSON. It's not Johnson, so it's not Pim Johnson. You can email Pim Johnson if you like, but she won't know what you're talking about. It's Pim with an I, PIM, Johnson, JANSSON.com, Pim at pimjohnson.com. Get hold of her there and she'll tell you what you need to do to organise yourself into the carb addiction treatment area, really, and get it sorted out. It's well worth getting it sorted out, and Pim is definitely the lady to help you do it, I'd say.
Completely. I've spoken to her personally quite a few times, and she knows her stuff. She's going to teach a lot of people things that they won't even realise. Like, part of it is just perceptualising how you deal with your own feelings and signals what he's telling you.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot to say she has a master's degree in human nutrition and also an undergraduate degree in biomedical science. So she really is quite well credentialed as well. Oh, and she's fully certificated as an addiction coach as well. So get into it.
Yeah. So my next lot of questions, getting away from my food now, is about training. So in terms of bodybuilding circles, we're away from the majority of the competitive season for the year. Majority of competitions are held during the sort of summer months.
Okay.
So how would training alter between the time of the non-competitive season and the competitive season? Or is it that training year-round should be progressive, like we've discussed before?
Yeah. So there is an idea that periodization of your training year is a good thing. And to me, that's generally around having a part of the year where your training is very, very intense, very, very hard work. Perhaps the volume isn't that high. And then having an off season where the intensity is a lot lower and the volume is a lot higher. The assumption there being that the volume is important for hypertrophy ongoingly. I'm not convinced of that. I'm definitely not personally a fan of volume in hypertrophy training. I think that the ideal thing for any athlete who is training for muscle hypertrophy to do is to take the view of what is the minimum effective exposure to exercise that achieves the goal of a training macro cycle, whether that macro cycle be a 12-month cycle or whether it be a 3 to 5 year cycle, depending on whether you're, what level you're at and how far ahead you're planned and, that kind of thing. So I'm always a fan of training being pretty much the same in terms of volume and intensity, and the variables that you moderate, that you play around with to keep your body guessing and to keep your body growing are more the details of how you do that. For example, do you change your splits around? For example, do you throw in drop sets, or indeed do you throw in pyramid sets? For example, do you throw in big negatives if you've got the kit and or training partners to do that? Maybe. Do you play around with your cadence? Maybe. All things that are a little bit individual, depends on your age, stage, development level, experience with lifting, all of those kind of things, absolutely. But to me, it's still based around usually 2 working sets with a warm-up set at 50% RM or whatever beforehand, then 2 working sets of 6 to 8 reps with a weight that will cave you in at around about that stage. So that if I'm saying 6 RM, I would expect that if you attempted the 7th, that you would lock out on that 7th and wouldn't be able to do it without the spotter, sort of thing. And then maybe you do that 7th, and then maybe even crack out an 8th if you've got really good spotters or you're on a machine that allows you to do that. But that's kind of the volume and intensity. I wouldn't like to see an athlete doing, even in their off season, I wouldn't like to see them doing 4, 5, 6 working sets on a muscle group, spread over 2 or 3 different exercises, sometimes up to 10 sets on a muscle group, and sometimes 10 or 12 reps, and with huge rests in between and lots of sitting on the bench, sipping out of the drink bottle and looking around the gym to see who looks good in Lycra, I want to see someone get in the gym, get at it hard, get it done, and get out of the gym. And I don't think personally that an off season where you do a whole bunch of volume at much lower intensity is a good idea. I think it's a bad idea in terms of the way muscle development occurs and how you keep your muscle guessing and stuff. There are those that would swear blind by volume and say the volume in the off season is important. I don't agree. I don't think that the research would agree with it either. There are people out there saying the research says this, the research says that, in all sorts of areas of life, aren't there? Doesn't mean they're right. If somebody wants to argue about the research with me, they absolutely can. All they need to do is make an appointment with me. We'll do it live on camera on my channel. You bring any research you like that says whatever you think it says, and we'll talk about it. In any area of exercise physiology, health science, nutrition, any of those things that I'm expert in, absolutely anybody that says, I'm wrong, I don't know what I'm talking about, whatever, you just email me, you just book that time and we'll have that discussion live on camera. You bring your study and I'll tell you what's wrong with it, because almost every study you look at has huge flaws in it. So anyway, my opinion, there it is. Keep your intensity up all year, all the time, and keep your body guessing by changing around the minutiae, the stuff I was talking about with cadence and drop sets and pyramid sets and order of exercises, change the splits around, whatever.
That's good advice. I mean, it does seem that there's the bare bones of what we need to do. That does seem to be underpinned by, intense training that is strenuous. It's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And as well, you touched on the studies that exist. So what are some of the limitations of those studies? And in what case would you say the one saying do more volume is better?
Yeah.
I know myself what is.
Okay, so the typical issues you'll find with such studies are a lack of statistical power. In other words, a sample size that's too small to generalize to a population at large. You might find a study that had a reasonable number of participants, but it was all 20-year-old blokes. Well, that's not applicable to me. That's not applicable to Jonathan, because neither one of us is 20. And our bodies won't respond the way a 20-year-olds will. So we need to break it down for age as well. And also, many of these studies take previously recreationally active but untrained participants hypertrophy-wise precisely because they want to test what happens when your gains are likely to be the most. Another real problem is a study that does not go for long enough. A resistance training study that runs for 6 weeks will not tell you anything about anything. Too short, for example. Often the studies are not properly controlled. They're not properly observed to make sure that participants adhere to any directions around diet or whatever else. That can throw things off in a big way. That's just a few examples. I mean, if I've forgotten anything major there, Jonathan, sing out. Let me know what else, other problems you might see with those kind of things.
Yeah, just touching on what you said about the observation factor in terms of getting participants to do X, Y, Z
Mm.
variables. It's very hard for someone to train at maximum intensity. So if you say, okay, go off, do your 3 sets of 10 or whatever program they're trying to put out.
Mm.
If you say to them, train to failure, they probably won't.
Yeah.
You know?
Almost certainly not. So if you look at a study where they did not get participants into the lab and actually supervise the exercise and make sure that participants adhere, no good. If, by the way, once they've finished working out in the lab, if they're then allowed to go off under their own reconnaissance, go home and do whatever they're going to do, study's no good. Because we've got no idea what those people did during that time. No idea at all.
Yeah. On a side note, are you familiar with someone called Dr. Scott Stevenson?
Doesn't ring a bell, no.
No, so not many people know him apart from me for some reason.
Okay.
He's got a PhD in applied exercise physiology.
Okay.
He is a bodybuilder, past former.
Mm-hmm.
He knows a thing or two about training.
Yeah.
What he says is basically underpinned on training intensely. And when you get to a certain level, you add in intensifiers to give yourself that novel stimulus.
Yeah.
So I might actually try and link you guys up to chat at some point when you've both got time.
Cool. That sounds like the thing I'm talking about with keeping your body guessing. The extra thing that just, yeah. Cool.
Yeah. All right. Got another question. Got to think carefully how to word this one. I've thought about it for quite a while.
Fly. Ignore him. Right. Sorry. Carry on.
Yeah. This one's more personal to me. So I've been training for now about 15 years. Over that span of time, I've done lots of different methods. So I've been training with a lot more volume when I first started.
Yeah.
Granted, I didn't understand how to train to maximum capacity.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand what intensity was. So I was just doing, 4 sets of 10 to 15 reps.
Yeah.
Probably could have done 20, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Now there's someone else in our online community that is recommending that someone does lots of warm-ups,
Mm-hmm.
not beyond what you'd consider a warm-up. We're advising people to do sort of a bit iffy exercises, so exercises that aren't recruiting the most amount of muscle fibers. So it might be that they're doing a funny kind of squat variation that's just going to work a few muscles here and there.
Okay.
What would you say to that person? Like, does your training in essence evolve as your training career goes on? So I'm 15 years and I know roughly how to train for my body. It's pretty much parallel to what you say.
Yeah.
Is that they reach that point through trial and error, or is it?
Yeah. I mean, someone that's been lifting 15 years or more, as you say, should really know what works, what doesn't work. They should know their body better than anybody else. They should be able to read the signals. They should know when they should train, when they should back off, when they should rest. The problem, I think, is that there are so many people running around out there who want to be your one go-to for source of information on exercise training and whatever else. Same in nutrition, same in health studies, same in pretty much any field. And the way that a lot of these guys differentiate themselves is to say something a bit off color from what everyone else is saying. Now, I've been accused of that myself in various areas. And it's not so much that what I'm saying is off color, but the way in which I'm saying it. My delivery methodology, if you like. This particular individual, I don't know who you're talking about. We don't need to name this person. That's not important. But this particular individual sounds like someone who has decided that they will differentiate themselves not by some quirk of personality or not by some presentation style necessarily, but by saying things that is very, very different for the sake of saying things that are different. Because at the end of the day, anyone that says that the standard big compounds that people do in terms of putting the most bulk on the most rapidly up front, anyone that says that's not true, they're not the effective ways of doing that, clearly has never done any training. because they are. Absolutely. It's been shown time and again in terms of muscle hypertrophy that the most effective way of doing this is, 2 and at most 3 working sets of 6 to 8 reps at a weight commensurate with that. Big compounds, multi-joint things, the deadlift, the squat, the bench press, the military press, those kind of things. And those things are there for a reason. They're there because they do what it says on the tin, surely. And if you've got here's a new way of doing this, well, okay, great. Have you done some work with this? Have you done some study on this, even anecdotally, that you can point us to say, look, we're getting really good results with this, and now we've got some researchers on board to do some actual peer-reviewed research here to establish as a new method. So I'd be challenging that person to come up with some kind of evidence that what he's saying is correct. In the same way that, when we're talking about preparation for endurance style events, I have a particular training methodology that I always espouse, which is different to what the vast majority of people out there in exercise physiology and training circles is saying. The difference is when someone comes to me and says, now can you prove it works? I'm able to do that. And I just don't know whether I'm not saying that there isn't proof behind what this individual is saying. I'm just saying I haven't seen it if there is, and I'd be more than welcome for that person to show me where it is. So if I came across that person and they said that to me, I'd say, oh, that's interesting. That's fascinating. Can you point me to where there's some kind of backup for that anywhere? That's what I'd do.
There's definitely known truths to things. We know we have to stimulate a muscle with as much effort as we can. That's the underlying factor. As long as that progressive overload adds up, then we're going to get the results we want. That pretty much concludes all the questions I have for today.
Awesome. Straightforward. Love it. Love it when a plan comes together. All right. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Jonathan. You're a gentleman and a scholar. I think that this is a fine channel that you've got going here, and I think you're asking sensible things about sensible topics. You're talking to some really interesting people. I've been enjoying watching what's been going on, and I hope that folks will subscribe to you in their droves and that you'll have every success because you deserve it.
Cheers, Paul. I appreciate that. That leaves pretty much us for today. Thank you very much for coming on.
All right, my pleasure.
Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe.
All right, good.